My family betrayed me, so I got revenge in the best way possible. Part 2. By the time 6 more months had passed, my plan was no longer just a theory, it was a living, breathing operation. My new company was steadily growing. The contracts I had redirected were producing real revenue, and I had handpicked a lean, loyal team that believed in the mission. I worked insane hours, slept little, but for the first time in years, the exhaustion was empowering instead of soul-crushing. Every late night felt like a step closer to freedom. Meanwhile, my parents and sister were still wrapped in their illusion of success. The company looked fine from the outside. Clients were still calling. Invoices were still being sent. But under the surface, the damage was already spreading. What they didn't realize was that many of their largest accounts were quietly phasing them out, handing projects to another firm, my firm. And the best part? They didn't even suspect me. They thought those clients were just cutting budgets, or maybe exploring cheaper alternatives. They didn't see the pattern because I made sure to stagger the departures. One account here, another there, never in a way that felt coordinated. But I knew exactly how much pain I was inflicting. The cracks begin. It started small. One evening, I overheard my sister on the phone, her voice sharp and brittle. "What do you mean you're pulling the contract? We've worked together for 5 years." She tried to hide it when she noticed me nearby, but I caught the tension in her jaw. She stormed into her office and slammed the door. I smiled to myself. That was one of my first redirected contracts finally making itself felt. Soon after, I began noticing subtle shifts at home. My parents, once so smug about my sister's natural leadership, started exchanging quiet, worried conversations at the dinner table. They thought I wasn't listening, but I caught snippets: late payments, revenue drop, we can fix this. I kept my poker face. I nodded politely when they ranted about unreliable clients, and even offered the occasional generic piece of advice, the kind that sounded helpful but did absolutely nothing to stop the bleeding. My sister spirals. The more cracks appeared, the more my sister unraveled. She became short-tempered with the staff, barking orders and shifting blame when things went wrong. People who once respected her began quietly resenting her. Morale plummeted. Several long-time employees quit, citing new opportunities, but I knew the truth. A couple of them had already joined my company. She grew paranoid, too. She accused my parents of doubting her, accused the staff of slacking, accused the clients of being disloyal. But never once did she suspect that the real betrayal had come from me, the brother she had walked over so confidently. It was poetic. The perfect storm. As months passed, the situation escalated into full-blown crisis. By now, nearly half of their major contracts had been transferred to my firm. I made sure to poach them gradually, strategically, so that the company could never stabilize. Every time they adjusted their budgets, another revenue stream would vanish. To make matters worse, I subtly spread word in the industry. Nothing obvious, just small hints to the right people, the kind of whispers that travel quickly in business circles. I've heard their leadership is unstable. They're losing key clients left and right. Not sure they'll survive the year. Reputation, once damaged, is nearly impossible to rebuild. The snowball effect was unstoppable. By the time they realized how deep the problem went, it was too late. Cash flow dried up. Bills piled high. Vendors stopped extending credit. They had no choice but to cut staff, which only made the workload heavier for the few employees who remained. My parents' realization. One evening, my father called me into the office. His face looked older, worn down by stress. "We're in trouble," he admitted. "We can't figure out why the clients keep leaving. Your sister is doing her best, but it's like everything is slipping away." I wanted to laugh in his face. Doing her best. Her best was running the ship straight into the ground. But outwardly, I put on a mask of concern. "Maybe the market's shifting," I offered, pretending to think. "Maybe you should diversify." He sighed, frustrated. "We've tried, but it's not enough. If this continues, we could lose everything." I nodded sympathetically, while inside, my heart was pounding with satisfaction. The empire they had stolen from me was crumbling before their eyes, and they didn't even know who was pulling the strings. The final move. By this point, my company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. I had absorbed nearly all of their top contracts. My revenue had surpassed theirs. My staff was motivated, loyal, and efficient. And I had one last card to play. I had deliberately saved one of the biggest clients for last. They were the crown jewel of the old company, the account my parents always bragged about at family gatherings. When I convinced them to switch to my firm, I knew it would be the fatal blow. I arranged the transition quietly, behind the scenes, ensuring every document and contract was airtight. And then, one Friday afternoon, I made the announcement. I walked into the old office, calm and collected, while my parents and sister sat at the table reviewing numbers. Their faces were pale, strained. "I wanted you to hear it from me," I said evenly. "As of Monday, the big client will be working exclusively with my company." The silence that followed was absolute. My sister's face twisted with rage. My mother gasped. My father slammed his fist on the table. "You," my father growled. "You've been behind this." I met his glare without flinching. "I gave my life to this company. You chose her over me. You treated me like I was disposable. So I built something of my own. And I did it better." The collapse begins. They tried to fight it. They screamed, they threatened, they begged. But there was nothing they could do. The contracts were legal, the clients were loyal to me now, and their reputation was already ruined. Within weeks, their company began spiraling toward bankruptcy. Vendors cut ties. Employees quit en masse. Clients who hadn't already joined me soon followed. The empire they had stolen, the throne they had given to my sister, was reduced to rubble. And I watched every second of it with cold satisfaction. The weeks that followed my revelation were nothing short of chaos. My parents and sister tried everything they could to stop the freefall, but it was like trying to patch a sinking ship with duct tape. The damage was too deep, the leaks too wide. The employees left in waves. First the juniors, then the veterans who had been with the company since the beginning. A few of them even sent me messages. "I always knew you were the real brains of the operation. Glad to see you thriving." Every time I read one, it fueled the fire in my chest. The respect I had been denied for years was finally mine. The pleas begin. One night, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was soft, almost broken. "Please, can't you help your sister? She's drowning here. You've always been the stronger one, the smarter one. Just step in, save the company, save the family name." I let her words hang in the air before I answered. "You made your choice," I said coldly. "You chose her over me. You gave her everything I built, and you expected me to just accept it. Well, now you're living with that choice." She started to cry, but I didn't feel pity. Not anymore. My sister's desperation. A week later, my sister herself showed up at my office. She didn't knock, she barged in like she still had authority. But the power she once flaunted was gone, her shoulders sagged, her eyes were ringed with sleeplessness. "You did this," she spat. "You sabotaged me. You stole everything." I leaned back in my chair, calm and collected. "I didn't steal anything. I took back what was mine. I worked for those clients. I earned their trust. You thought you could ride my work to glory, but you were never capable of leading." Her face flushed red with fury. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The company is collapsing. Our family is ruined." I stood, my voice steady but sharp. "No. You ruined it. With your arrogance. With your entitlement. You thought you could take what I built and make it yours. But the truth is, without me, you were nothing. And now the world sees it too. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I didn't stop her. The collapse finalized. Within 2 months, the company officially filed for bankruptcy. Their assets were liquidated, their offices shuttered. Years of history, gone in a matter of weeks. And all of it because they underestimated me. Meanwhile, my company was flourishing. We had expanded into new markets, hired more staff, and built a reputation as one of the most reliable firms in the industry. The clients who had once been theirs were now proudly mine. The family fallout. My parents were shattered. Their dream of a family empire had turned to ash. My father, once so domineering, barely spoke to me. My mother, once so proud, now avoided my eyes. And my sister? She vanished into obscurity, moving out of town after the humiliation became too much to bear. For the first time in my life, I felt no guilt. They had betrayed me first. They had taken my years of sweat and sacrifice and handed it to someone who hadn't earned it. My revenge wasn't just about contracts or money, it was about proving, once and for all, that I was the true builder, the true leader, the one they should never have underestimated. The best revenge. One evening, as I locked up my new office, I stood outside and looked up at the building. The lights glowed from the top floor, where my team was still working late. My team. My company. My future. I thought back to all those nights I stayed up working while my family slept. To the moments when they dismissed me, belittled me, and told me I wasn't leadership material. To the day they pushed me aside and crowned my sister. And now? Now I was the one standing on top. The best revenge wasn't screaming at them. It wasn't begging for recognition. It wasn't even the satisfaction of watching their empire collapse. The best revenge was success. Pure, undeniable, unshakable success, on my terms. And as I walked to my car, I smiled to myself. Because they could never take that away from me again.